And by taking advantage of all of the matching in these plans, you could potentially end up gaining an extra few $100s or a few $1,000s over the entire year. And that's money that you didn't have to work for. And it's essentially free money that the employer gave you just because you put money into these plans. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Ali and let's talk about finance. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what an employer-sponsored group plan is when it comes to investments and what to look for if you're presented with one. Now, every single employer-sponsored plan is going to be slightly different, so I'm going to be breaking down the differences between what could potentially be presented to you and what to look for, some of the pros, some of the cons, and that way you can really take advantage of these employer-sponsored plans to help you get ahead in the future. With employer-sponsored plans, there's quite a bit going on and you need to understand the differences between them. Now, some employer plans offer pension plans, some of them are registered retirement savings plans, some offer deferred profit sharing plans, and some offer share ownership plans. Now, I'm going to explain what the differences between all of these are and what the most common things to look for, as well as the pros and cons of each one and whether or not you should be putting your money into these plans. So let's start off by talking about what a pension plan is. So a pension plan is essentially set up so you can help save for retirement. A pension plan, as the name suggests, is supposed to provide you a pension or an income when you go to retire. Now, there's two different types of pension plans. There's a defined benefit pension plan and there's a defined contribution pension plan. Now, the differences between the two. First, let's start with the defined benefit pension plan. As the name suggests, this one will tell you exactly how much you're going to receive at retirement on a monthly basis. Now, the majority of pension plans are not defined benefit pension plans. And the reason for that is because over the last 20 to 30 years, employers have been moving away from defined benefit pension plans because there's a lot of liability on the employer to make sure that these still stay up and running. And a lot of companies don't like to have that liability of running that pension plan. Now, there are a couple pros and cons when it comes to these pension plans. The very first thing is you know exactly how much you're going to receive at retirement. Now, in terms of how that's calculated, it really depends on the pension plan. There are some set criteria, and in order for you to receive that set amount, you have to meet that criteria and everything gets calculated for you. One major disadvantage of a defined benefit pension plan is the fact that if the employer declares bankruptcy or goes down under, then a lot of times the pension is impacted. And you see that sometimes when a company that's been around for a very long time, for example, I'll use Sears. When Sears here in Canada went bankrupt, all of the people that were receiving pensions, all of a sudden their money was gone. They ended up having to settle, and in the courts they ended up granting them $1,000 a month, and that was the maximum that anyone in that pension plan was going to be able to receive. Now, this is definitely something to consider because there is a way to actually move your money when you go to retire out of the pension plan. Now, the other type of pension plan is a defined contribution pension plan. And in this case, you know exactly how much you're going to be putting into the pension plan, but you don't know what you're going to be receiving on a monthly basis because that is dependent on how the investments actually do in the pension plan. With the defined contribution pension plan, there's a set amount that you're going to be contributing into this pension plan. You're also responsible for choosing what you want your money to be invested into. Usually they provide you about 20 to 30 different options to choose from, and you're supposed to pick the investment. Now, the amount that you receive when you go to retire will depend on how much you contributed as well as how well the investments performed in the time that you had the money invested there. So the one downside with a defined contribution pension plan is the fact that you don't actually know how much you're going to receive on a monthly basis. There are ways to project this out, but it's very hard to know exactly how much you're going to receive until you actually go to retire and you run some projections, and that's usually something that a financial advisor, a financial planner can do for you. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is on you. So now that we've talked about pensions, now let's talk about the registered retirement savings plan, because that is I'd say the second most common employer-sponsored plan. And essentially the registered retirement savings plan, in a similar way to you being able to open it up individually, a lot of employers offer it for you to actually open it up through the employer. And the nice thing with this is you have more flexibility in terms of what you can actually do with the registered retirement savings plan. And then just like a defined contribution pension plan, you're responsible for selecting the investments that you want the money to go into, and that will grow over time. Now, there's a little bit more flexibility, like I said, with the registered retirement savings plan, and that is you can actually use it for more than just retirement income purposes. There's two other reasons for why you'd be allowed to take money out of the registered retirement savings plan. The first one is called the first time home buyers plan, or the home buyers plan. This is where if you're a first time home buyer, you'll be able to borrow money from the registered retirement savings plan up to $60,000 and be able to use that towards the purchase of a property. Now keep in mind, you are borrowing from the registered retirement savings plan. It is a 0% interest. You don't pay any interest on it, but you are required to pay back that $60,000 or up to $60,000 over the next 15 years. So for example, if you take out $60,000 and you're borrowing it for the first time home buyers plan, you would have to pay back $4,000 a year back into the RRSP, or the registered retirement savings plan. And you don't have to pay any sort of penalties or income taxes or anything like that. If you don't contribute back $4,000 into the registered retirement savings plan in a given year, whatever amount that you did not contribute, you have to claim that amount for income tax purposes, and you have to pay taxes on that amount as if you took that money out indefinitely. Now, the other reason that you can pull money out of the registered retirement savings plan is if you decide that you want to go back to school. So whether you want to improve your skills, or if you want to change careers and go into a different field, you're able to take out up to $10,000 per year to a maximum of $20,000 to help pay for your education. This is, again, if you take this money out, you are required to pay it back. You are borrowing it from the registered retirement savings plan, so you have to put it back. And in this case, you have 10 years to put it back from the time that you graduate, or 5 years after the initial withdrawal out of the registered retirement savings plan. The other thing to keep in mind with the registered retirement savings plan is you're able to pull the money out of the account at any time if you desperately need it. The only thing to keep in mind is you do have to pay income taxes on any amount that you take out. Any money that goes into the registered retirement savings plan, you get a tax deduction, so you don't actually end up paying any tax on any money that's going in. So any money that comes out, you have to pay income taxes on. Now, this is very similar when it comes to the pension plans that I mentioned earlier, where you get a deduction, but the difference is with pension plans, you can't pull money out because the money is locked in. And I'll explain what the difference is between locked in funds and non-locked in funds in just a little bit. Now, there's two other types of plans that are quite common. One is a deferred profit sharing plan, and the other one is a share ownership plan. First, let me talk about the deferred profit sharing plan. So the deferred profit sharing plan, this is essentially a plan where only your employer can contribute into it. You can't personally contribute into it. Only your employer can contribute into that on your behalf. And typically what happens is any money that you're eligible to receive for bonuses, they will actually end up contributing that into a deferred profit sharing plan if the employer is offering this type of plan. And that money gets invested in a very similar way to either the defined contribution pension plan or the registered retirement savings plan. Now, the last type of account that you could potentially open up is a share ownership plan. If you work for a public company, so a company that's trading on the stock market, you potentially might have an opportunity to buy shares of the company. And if you buy shares of the company, that essentially just means that you are purchasing a small percentage of the company, so you are technically a part owner of that company. Now, what happens is with this type of plan, you end up buying the share of the specific company that you're working for. And from there, if the company does well and the stock goes up, then you make money. If the company doesn't do well and the stock goes down, then you end up losing some money. Now, you might be asking, why should I put money into a pension plan? Why should I put it into a registered retirement savings plan? Why should I open up any of the other accounts? The main thing with employer-sponsored plans is a lot of times there's additional money that's put into these accounts on your behalf because you're contributing into the plan. This is called matching. So what essentially happens is as you put in money into the plan, Your company will match up to a certain percentage or up to a certain dollar amount. And what that means is if you put in $1, they might be putting in $1 or 50 cents into the account for every dollar that you put into the account. Now, the reason that I say it could be $1, it could be 50 cents, it really depends on the employer. Every single employer sponsored plan is slightly different. So you have to take a look at the benefits package so then you can see how much matching you're eligible for and which accounts you're eligible for matching, because not all accounts are eligible for matching. Also keep in mind that with these employer sponsored plans, there's always a mandatory amount that you have to contribute into the plan. This is mandatory for all employees. Now, just keep this in mind though, there are voluntary contributions that you can make into the plan, and some of those voluntary contributions could be eligible for matching, which again allows you to gain more free money into the account that you didn't have to contribute into. And by taking advantage of all of the matching in these plans, you could potentially end up gaining an extra few $100s or a few $1,000s over the entire year. And that's money that you didn't have to work for. And it's essentially free money that the employer gave you just because you put money into these plans. Another advantage of putting money into these employer sponsored plans is a lot of times the management fees for the investment funds that are available are actually a lot lower than if you were to be investing on your own. So for example, I've seen from experience a lot of employer plans where the management fee for the investments is anywhere between 0.5% to 1% in terms of that management fee on an annual basis. Now, if you were to try to invest in the exact same investment but open the account by yourself outside individually, then a lot of times the management fees for those exact same investments is 1.5 to 2%. That is the average management fee when it comes to these investment portfolios. And the reason that there's a management fee is because with every single investment portfolio, whether it's a mutual fund or whether it's an ETF, there is always a team that is doing all of the research and making all of the changes inside the portfolio. And at the end of the day, there are fees that these teams incur because they have to make these changes. As well, they have to get paid for all of the research and all the work that they do. So there's always that management fee that has to be paid. Because the management fee is usually a lot lower in an employer-sponsored group plan, with the management fees, if you end up saving yourself 1% by putting money into the employer-sponsored plan versus doing it yourself, that could end up being thousands of dollars over a long period of time that accumulates because you ended up paying less fees over the long term. That's definitely a big advantage for having these plans, is really taking advantage of the lower fees, because if you were to do it on your own, first of all, you'd end up paying higher fees if you wanted to invest in the same investments. As well, you wouldn't have that matching for every dollar that you put into these group plans. The very last thing that's important to understand is what happens after you end up leaving the employer. If you decide that you want to retire, or if you want to go and get a job with a different company, or you just ended up changing fields and you no longer want to work in that industry, what is it that you have to keep in mind? So with pension plans, as I mentioned earlier, the money has to stay locked in. What it means for money to stay locked in is it could only be used for retirement income purposes. So any money that's sitting in a pension plan, if it's a defined contribution pension plan, if you have to move the money out of the pension plan when you leave, it goes into a LIRA, a locked in retirement account, where the money just continues to be invested and you can't access that money. In certain provinces, you may potentially be able to access it if the balance is considered a low balance, or if you're having some sort of financial hardship. There are certain criteria that you have to meet, but it does depend on the province that the pension plan is set in. The rest of the accounts that you could potentially open, so the Registered Retirement Savings Plan or the RRSP, the Deferred Profit Sharing Plan or the DPSP, or the Share Ownership Plan or the SOP, those plans are not locked in. So if you ever want to access those funds, you definitely can, but you have to keep in mind that with most of these situations, if you decide that you want to take money out and withdraw it out of the account, then you have to add it to your taxable income in that given year, and you are subject to paying income taxes on that amount. So there you have it, guys. That's everything that you need to know with regards to employer-sponsored plans. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends and family, and leave a comment down below. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those in the comments. Also, if there's any topics that you want me to cover in a future video, leave them in the comments below and I'll make a video on that specific topic at a later time. As always, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you guys next time.